Annie Williams couldn't believe that she'd actually been invited to study at the prestigious Paris Opera Ballet after she graduated high school. She'd been walking on air since she'd found out that morning, and it was all she could think about. Annie's best friend, Diane Bellamy, was going to Florida State to study marine biology. Annie's boyfriend of 5 years, Roger Davies, was going to Harvard in Boston. But they had found out weeks ago that they had been accepted. Annie had had to wait and walk around on eggshells for months now, wondering if her audition was good enough. Was there something she could have done better? Could her ballet teacher have written a good enough reference? She'd grab every bit of mail that came before her parents could get to it, and then had to suck off that horrible feeling of disappointment every time the letter she expected had not yet come. It had been torture. Annie was about to give up and switch to her plan B if dance school didn't work out. Her parents had told her there were other dance schools right here in America, or even closer to home in Florida. But they weren't the Paris Opera Ballet School. At breakfast this morning, her parents had told her there was something important they needed to discuss with her. Annie had felt the dread that they were about to tell her they were getting a divorce, or worse, that her mother's breast cancer had come back. She had sat in dread, waiting at the breakfast counter for her parents to come down, and then her mother had put the letter in front of her. Annie's heart had lurched as she'd stared at the envelope, frozen in terror about what the letter would say. Eventually, her mother had picked it up and ripped it open to read it. While her mother read, Annie hadn't even realized she'd taken a death grip on her father's hand, waiting for what her mother would tell her. Her mother wasn't a very good poker player because she had very revealing eyes, and the moment she put the letter down, Annie knew she'd made it. "I'm in," Annie said to no one in particular, and spun around, not caring who saw her or what they thought of her. She couldn't help the big grin that spread across her full, soft pink lips and lit up her violet eyes as she rushed through the school halls to get to her class. She glanced around the hallway, and it didn't seem quite real to Annie that this was their final few weeks of school. They would soon be graduating to go their separate ways in the world, to start the next journey of life into adulthood. Even though most people lost contact after high school, Annie was sure that would never happen to her, Diane, and Roger. How could they not? The three of them had grown up with each other since they were born. Their parents had been best friends since they were all at school. They had also left Manatee Bay in Florida to go to different universities. Her father had been a pro hockey player, but in the end, they all came home to each other and Manatee Bay. Annie's heart always felt a little blue when she thought about the next stage of her life. She was moving halfway across the world, to Paris, to study and hopefully become a prima ballerina, which would take her dancing on many different stages of the world. Annie would miss the Bay, her parents' inn, and Manatee Sanctuary that she'd worked at for as long as she could remember. It was all a big part of her, but she had to remember it was only part of her. She still had many more parts of her life to fill. Annie pushed her morbid thoughts away. Today was about celebrating that she, too, had gotten into her choice of places to study after high school, and she couldn't wait to tell her friends. Annie was so deep in thought as she hurried to get to class that she didn't see Olivia Ingle and bumped right into her, nearly knocking her to the ground in her haste. Olivia had been her biggest nemesis since grade 1. She was also the popular Queen Bee and the school's mean girl who had not been happy at all when Roger had chosen Annie over her 5 years ago in middle school. "Watch it," Olivia sneered at Annie. "You wouldn't want any broken bones before you go off to Juilliard or wherever it is you're hoping to get into." Olivia's troupe of Olivia wannabes all laughed and jeered at Annie.